Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome back, everybody. Our guest today, Zarina Bahadur. Zarina, it's great to have you on. Please tell us where you're calling in from and what you do for a living with 123 Baby Box.
Yeah, so I'm calling in from sunny Southern California, and I am the CEO and founder of 123 Baby Box, and that is a monthly subscription box for babies.
That's amazing. So can you tell me a little bit about your background leading up to, what kind of problem did you see out there in the market that you were trying to and have successfully, in my mind, solved in creating this brand?
Yeah, well, at the time I was in business school, and then late one night I was at the grocery store. I saw an exhausted mom in her work clothes, and she had a crying baby in one hand and a toddler in the other, and her cart was filled of baby products. And I thought to myself, we're living in the 21st century. Why couldn't all these things come to her conveniently packed in a box? At that time, I was in college. I was like, okay, I'm not going to let this, me being in college, stop me. I'm just going to go out there and just try it. I'm not going to go to a corporate job. I'm just going to go for it. So I ended up competing in our school's competition for entrepreneurs, ended up winning first place out of 114 startups, which was an awesome feeling.
Wow,
it
that's
really
awesome,
validated the idea and what I really wanted to do. So graduated and then launched the company and have kind of been running it ever since.
That's amazing. I love that story. And what kind of made you go towards the direction of doing it on a subscription basis rather than maybe just having a bunch of SKUs on a website to sell individually for what people need? Obviously the subscription model is obviously huge in e-commerce these days. So it makes sense in that way. I think people are just very open to that idea. They like the convenience of just putting it on autopilot. But what eventually led you to saying that this is definitely the type of model that's going to work for these types of products?
Right. So I knew that just looking at that market and that customer segment specifically, first time moms, babies, they always need something every single day, right? Mm-hmm. So why not have it be on a convenient, monthly delivery where the mom doesn't have to research every single month about the types of products she needs for her baby. She just, orders from us one time and boom, she's set for the next 3 years. So I thought, that's really convenient and that's what I want my customers to really experience with our service and our product. I don't want them to kind of have to, every single month build their box or research the products or anything like that. I want it to be one time, set it and forget it. And at the time, a subscription was super popular. It still is pretty popular, but I think I just got lucky where the customer, it fit perfectly for them. And then also it's a really great revenue model too.
Yeah, no, it totally is. Doing D2C in any capacity is the best, obviously, because you obviously have that direct communication with your customers. It's one of the best ways, especially in the early stages of a company, just to be able to get that feedback, good, bad, and ugly, and everything in between, just to make sure you do have that open communication and all those kinds of things. So that's amazing. And I'm curious more about just a little bit more about the subscription model, how you kind of make it work, and how often does somebody receive something, from 123 Baby Box? I know you said it was over a 3-year period. So I guess 2 questions here. One being when is the age of a child where these products start and when does it end? And also how frequent are the deliveries on these things?
Yeah, so the boxes are from 0 to 3 years old. So about 0 to 36 months. And then they get a box delivered every single month. We're kind of actually now asking our customers, would you like to do a bi-monthly box? Would you like to do a quarterly box? Because as the baby is getting a little bit older, when they hit the 2-year-old and 3-year-old mark, they don't necessarily need the items more frequently. So that's something that we actually will implement soon as well. But for now, it's a monthly subscription.
That's awesome. And what kind of goes into these boxes, from each one of these different stages? Could you tell me a little bit about I'm curious about a 0 to 1-year-old. What kind of things do you find in a box, a monthly box for a child of that age when they have a subscription?
Yeah, so you have your kind of basic diapers and wipes subscription, which everyone kind of has, but with our boxes it's a little bit different because they are developmental items that are meant to grow with the baby from birth all the way until 3 years old. So these kinds of things could include sensory flash cards, different developmental toys, different books, teethers at certain stages. You would think you need one teether and that's it, but you actually need certain teethers at certain stages. So that's a little bit about the types of products that come with our boxes. It's really meant for the mom and the baby to kind of have a really good experience where, okay, you need these products at this certain time, and then it starts to change as the baby gets older. And that was really our focus, and that was one of our goals, is that, we didn't want to just be a baby gift subscription box because, hey, that's good for baby showers, but what about, the next 3 years? So with the items, it really grows with the baby.
Yeah. It seems like it's more packful of the necessities that you would actually need on a monthly basis, and then some kind of other things like teethers at different stages kind of thrown in. That's amazing. I absolutely love that. And mean, there's so many, single mothers out there these days that need this kind of convenience. So is there anybody else out there doing something like this? I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing of anything like this at all. So have you found anybody else like kind of coming into the space since you started this brand that have become popular, or what kind of trends do you see out there in the market these days?
Yeah, what's funny is I feel like with us entrepreneurs, when we get an idea, we're like, this is the best idea since sliced bread. And no one has ever thought about this idea. And I'm the only one working on it, right? But when you actually go, to market and you're actually doing all the work, you find out, okay, I have competitors and this idea might have actually been done before. What's funny is I was talking to one of my investors before he invested. He said, you know what? Actually, way back in the 80s when I had my first son, the day I got home from the hospital, I got a call from a company that says, hey, would you like toys delivered to you for your baby as they grow? I'm like, no way. So it's funny because the ideas that we see right now, they could have already been done in the past, but now we're just kind of doing it better. So there are other baby subscription boxes in the market, which I personally also like as well. I think competition actually is a good thing, because one thing we learned in business school is that if there's no one else, doing it out there, then maybe there's not a market for it. There's some competitors out there that are doing good. So, but I think the market is big enough for all of us. The market that we're in, the baby market is huge. It's only going to keep growing. And we're just in the United States, right? We could expand into other countries as well.
That's awesome. And as far as the contents of, what people are buying, as far as like diapers and wipes and things like this, what's your kind of source model for these products that go into the subscription boxes? Are they kind of like the name brands that like you kind of know already, or are you doing like any like kind of private labeling with your own branding on there?
Yeah, so good question. So when we first started, it really was the other like third-party suppliers and the big brands and things like that. And that worked well. And we're still kind of doing that because we recently launched a product placement kind of opportunity for brands to take part in. And that has been doing well because brands, they have a new item or they want to get in front of the moms and they think this is such an effective way instead of maybe like a cold email or an ad or something like that. With our product placement, they're actually able to get their products in the hands of our moms. So we still work with different brands, but actually we have started creating our own baby products. Ideally, we'd like to launch our own line of baby products and toys and things like that, because I think we are well equipped to do that. But I think just kind of, since we're in the starting phases, I think it's kind of better to first really understand what the customers like and then kind of go from there. Because the customers, they might think they need all these things, but maybe they really only need a certain amount of things, or maybe they really have a special preference. So we still kind of need to figure that out before we continue on the full-on custom route, or if we, stick to working with other brands.
Yeah, it's a really interesting kind of like, obviously like you need to source things in a way that's going to make sense for your bottom line and everything else. But the way that you're doing it now with this product placement with other, sourcers is interesting, because you kind of get to do a little bit of testing along the way too, whether you want to go and, do everything yourself with your own branding, or just like maybe land with a manufacturer of one of the things that just ends up working really well and you get really good feedback for. So that's really interesting. And was that kind of your thinking in doing that and like, bringing on different product placement ideas with different suppliers? Or is that just like something you kind of realized was naturally occurring? You just like being able to do this testing, or did you kind of know that going in?
Yeah, so I think when I first started, I kind of had no idea that this could potentially be such a huge advertising vehicle and even a data model too, because that feedback that we get from the customers, we could then let the suppliers know. So no, I really didn't have an idea going into this. It really happened when companies and brands started reaching out and they're like, hey, we have this perfect product for your box, or hey, we think this product would do so well in your target market of new moms. And that's just kind of how it started. We ended up having a wait list, which was awesome.
Oh, nice.
And every single month we try to work with different brands, and we try to like put non-competing brands in the box together. Sometimes brands will have a sample size product, or sometimes they'll just do a coupon or a brochure. So it really depends on the brands. And what's really awesome, I think, is that we have a lot of small businesses that reach out to us. So to be able to help them advertise as well is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, no, that's great. Those partnerships are so important too. I mean, going forward, you're obviously going to want to have conversations with as many, suppliers and manufacturers as you can. I mean, whether you're doing private labeling with a manufacturer to end up doing your own branding on all your stuff or whatever it is. So yeah, no, it's definitely a great data stream and a great relationship building practice doing what you're doing. So I think it's a really great perspective, a really great way to think about, how you're getting your sourcing is kind of like keeping it variable and not just like trying to force yourself to land on something just for like the simplicity of it. I think what you're doing is actually really savvy. I love that. So that's awesome. And I guess, do you find people still like wanting to continue order after the kids are older than 3 with some of just like the necessities, or what kind of relationship or like what kind of plans do you have that can maybe continue on to like maybe into the higher age ranges, as the company moves forward?
Yeah, really good question. I think as the baby gets a little bit older, they're not going to necessarily need a baby box, but they're going to need something. And I think that's along the lines of more like educational resources, items, different toys that help with their education. Because from the 3-year-old to 4-year-old mark, they're going into preschool, then they're going to go into kindergarten. So I think just kind of that having having different educational items is going to be really, really useful. Again, I don't know if it's going to be a baby box or it could be something different. We're still actually trying to figure that out and talking to our customers and saying like, hey, what does your baby need at that stage? Or what are you looking for as a parent? When I kind of think back to when I was little, a really cool educational item I had was like the leapfrog. I don't know if you remember that or if you ever had that, but it was kind of like, the electric, kind of book, and you put the pen on the word and it would read it out to you. And I remember my mom would tell me like that actually helped you learn how to read. So I think different things like that is what we're looking at.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And we were the original iPad kids from our generation.
Yes.
It was just called the leapfrog, right? It's so funny.
Yeah. But what's funny is I'm still Gen Z. So I'm like at the latest end of Gen Z.
Me too. I'm like the oldest Gen Z. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like this kind of like weird gray area of like, I'm not a millennial, but I remember all the millennial trends and all the TV shows, but I'm still Gen Z, I guess.
Yeah, it's such. I have this conversation a lot on the podcast with, I would say like the true Gen, the meat of the Gen Z, like a little younger than I assume we both are. It's really interesting in that way where Gen Z parents and Gen Z just consumers in general. I mean, I read a stat the other day that somewhere like 75% of Gen Z is still living with their parents, and like that's for a myriad of reasons. But it's just interesting. Like typically by the time you're at a certain age, you considered like your own consumer category that has their own trends and their own interests and their own kind of like identifiable wants out of the market. But I feel like Gen Z is just like kind of just very late bloomers between COVID and just like there's massive inflation that's happening. I don't want to get into like a political conversation or anything, but I mean it's true though. Like I think that's why like marketing to Gen Z can be so difficult because I just don't think they've really carved out their real like want in a market yet.
They kind of have a mind of their own, don't they? I mean, I say they, but I'm one of them too. But I think they're just kind of approaching things differently, right? Like they grew up with the age of the internet and things like that. So I think it's just their mindset is a little bit more different.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. And to that point, I suppose I'm curious, where do you kind of find your ideal customer as far as, obviously, I mean, just kind of a defined age range of people who have 0 to 3-year-olds, obviously, so you can obviously identify that. But do you find any kind of skew between, younger to older types of, parents that are typically your like most popular customers or ideal customer for you?
Yeah, I think the first time mom is kind of probably the customer that we most see often. And I think just because we really market to the first time mom, it's kind of in all of our marketing material. It's kind of, on our website and things like that. So I think the first time mom, but we have had like a lot of second time and even third time moms as well come on. And then I'd say the second most popular customer segment would be the grandmas and the grandpas. So they just kind of, I think they love it. A lot of grandmas, when they reach out to us, they're like, oh, my daughter, my son sends me photos every time they get the box, like, which is awesome. And I think also like some people just kind of go out of their way to get the box. Sometimes I've seen that, like people are in the military, they'll move, but they'll make sure like, hey, I'm moving, this is my new address, please make sure the box gets there, because it becomes a bit of a family tradition when the box gets there and they're opening it with all their family members, because it's not kind of like your typical Amazon package that, okay, got a box from Amazon, that's it. It really becomes like an experience. So, but yeah, I'd say the first time mom and the grandmas are huge for us.
Yeah, I could see that. And do you find like between the grandmothers, I'm curious, like, are they buying it more often like for the actual parent, just kind of like gift to help support? Or do you find it's like grandmothers who are spending a lot of time actually also taking care of the kids, wanting to have it for themselves so that they can be prepared when like, they're watching the kids as grandparents?
Yeah, I think we've had a little bit of both, but I think it's been more the first one where, hey, my son or daughter just had baby and I really want to get them something to like make them feel special, something that's like really fun, because I think, this is a certain topic with every mom who has a baby, postpartum depression, right? They experience, I think the stat is about like 80% or so. So I think that is, that's kind of hard to like go through, but when you have something that is there, it's waiting for you, you're looking forward to it, I think that can kind of help as well. So yeah, I've heard that from our customers as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I mean, just as like a quick brainstorm, I suppose, like, is that something you've considered, including maybe as a part of the subscription, or maybe an option for that to have like, postpartum like health products and like information and education for the mothers as well as products for the children?
Yeah, I think we might like move into that later down the line, but right now we're like focused, purely on babies 0 to 3 and really just trying to hone in our marketing and our material on that. But I think later down the line, we could potentially branch into that. There is definitely a market there, but we haven't touched it yet, but we've kind of seen it.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy perspective on it. I mean, I don't want to say all the time, but I definitely talk to, and not even necessarily on the podcast, but I definitely talk to founders of businesses, and I think a big problem that happens a lot of times is you have some initial success and you expand like just too many SKUs, and you're starting to paint like too broad of a stroke, and you kind of lose focus of like it's just that old like marketing adage of like market to everybody or try to message everyone, you actually message nobody, right? So I think that's a really healthy perspective you have on that, just to continue to kind of like hone in on this and perfect it and continue to test and do things, and then but obviously I can tell just from having the conversation you have big ideas in your mind for the next steps when that time comes. So that's amazing.
I think also I've grown a lot as an entrepreneur. Like when I first started, I wanted to do everything. And I was like, this is a great idea. Like, let's do this. Let's do this. And I think that could be distracting at some periods of time. But then also you kind of waste time a little bit by trying to do everything. I think if you just focus on one thing, you really master that, then you can move on to the next thing.
That's amazing. And
that shiny object syndrome kicks in. I think all entrepreneurs have it.
Yeah, it's almost inescapable. I think you can just temper it. That's better than most will do. I don't know if you can ever totally get rid of it, but no, that's so funny. Last couple of questions here. One, I'm always curious. I mean, you obviously sell direct to consumer through the website. I have to assume that that's definitely your biggest channel. Do you operate or like, have yourself on any kind of like other marketplaces or anything like that? Or are you really just honed in on the D2C through the website?
Yeah, so we're actually on Cratejoy, which is a subscription box marketplace. Cratejoy is awesome. Yeah, because our CAC is literally $0. So they do all the marketing. Yeah, Cratejoy. It's a subscription box marketplace, and they do all the marketing. Awesome. They bring in your customer. And I'd say like 90% of our sales on Cratejoy is all prepaid subscriptions, which is another fantastic thing. D2C, of course, Amazon, we also sell on there. Amazon's, I think, really convenient for like the baby shower goers, right? They just, get the box one time and they're done. And then actually we actually are now on the platform Faire. So Faire is kind of like a wholesale marketplace. So I didn't really, think about it too much. But again, another brand reached out and they're like, hey, it was like a boutique actually, like, hey, we want to have your boxes in our shop. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. So ever since we, launched on Faire just a couple months ago, we've had customers like the Dallas Children's Museum, another children's museum here in California. We've had a lot of children's museums, which is funny. We've had little mom and pop shops and little boutiques. So yeah, just kind of places where you never thought like your box could sell. It sells, which is funny.
No, it's amazing. And then I'm curious. I mean, obviously Cratejoy is like kind of fits right into what you're trying to do with the subscription model of things, obviously as a subscription marketplace. But when you sell things through Amazon or, you sell them to be on like either in children's museums or gift shops or any of these other kind of like retailer types, what do you find is like the type of boxes? Obviously it's so variable. I mean, the 0 to 3 age range is like night and day every year. It's so different. So do you try to provide like, 3 different kinds of like boxes with different things, or what kind of angle do you take with that when you decide like what's going to be in a box that's on like a retail shelf rather than on the subscription basis like you normally do?
Right. So you kind of just have to simplify it down. You can't really provide them all 36 boxes. You just have to say, is your target audience and customer a newborn more so, or is it on the toddler side? And dependent on their answer and what they say, that's kind of how you build the box for them. It's like, okay, these are some of our most popular toddler items, right? That we believe will fit, the majority, I'd say, of toddlers. Same thing with the newborn box. But what also retailers have been doing is just purchasing the products separately that go into the boxes, our own products that we've manufactured for the boxes. They're starting to purchase that as well separately, which is a whole, I think, other business model too. So yeah.
And that'll be a great thing if you do eventually, figure out like a supply chain for yourself to do like your own branding and private labeling, things from suppliers rather than having other brands in the box. I think that could be a huge revenue channel. So it's good that you're like nurturing something like that earlier on. That's really incredible. You're so savvy and scrappy with this business. I love it. You're just like so like thinking about different revenue channels and supply streams and things. I really love it. You're very creative in all your processes. I really appreciate that. It's great insights. And I think for anybody else listening who is, aspiring entrepreneur or current entrepreneur, like this is the way I think, if you're going to think at a high level about your business and the possibilities, I mean, I think so much of what we talked about today are, the way that your mind should be going. It's like you think about other revenue streams, but, not like just like jumping from thing to thing, just like have it there, nurture that. If it's something that ends up going well, maybe you can double down on it down the line. So I think you have a really healthy perspective on a lot of things you're doing. I really appreciate that. I think it's important and valuable for people to hear. So let me ask you just one last question, something I love to ask everybody that comes on the podcast. So I guess, it's been 3 years, you're obviously having success. If you could go back to 2021, I know you were in college at the time, or maybe that was right after. But I'm just curious, if you can go back and give yourself a piece of advice, or maybe, somebody looking to get into, their first entrepreneurial venture, like what kind of advice would you give either yourself or, somebody looking to, get off on a venture project like you've done?
I think maybe I'd say probably study your target customer a little bit more. Sometimes we have a good idea and we like jump into it and we start building right away, but maybe, the customer doesn't need those certain things, or maybe, the customer has different needs and preferences. I say this because I was a part of an entrepreneurial club in college, and people were building apps and things like that, and they were putting like way too many features, in the app right away. And the users, some of them didn't like that, didn't need that, would get confused with the platform. Mm-hmm. And even with our boxes, sometimes we thought like, oh, moms are going to love this product without really even researching if the mom needs that product, right? So I'd say probably research your target customer a little bit more and really figure out their needs and their pain points. And I think you'll be golden for sure.
Yeah, I think it's such good advice. And I think along the way of, kind of doing that practice too, of, just like wanting to get honest feedback and not trying to like force your initial idea onto like what your brand is. It's so important.
It goes back to that product market fit too.
Exactly.
So if you can figure that out early on, you'll save a lot of time and a lot of money, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And Zarina, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your time and all of your insights. I wish you nothing but continued luck and success. And thanks for coming on again. And I'll definitely be in touch. I look forward to hearing the rest of your story. Maybe we can speak again somewhere down the line.
Thank you. You got it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zarina. Thanks, everybody.